All right, so what's up, y'all? This your girl, Danny Renee, and I have Carol Lerose here, Lerose, and I'm the Millennial Mentor. I'm a coach. My goal is to mentor others and coach, and the point of this is the Millennial Network is to bring different financial tips, different ways from different professionals, and I have here Carol. The reason I brought Carol is because she personally is my real estate agent. I just bought a house, and I learned a lot from that process because she is a beast. Very, very good at what she does. And before I let her introduce herself and who she works for and all her specifics is how we met. So like over a year or so ago. So we're friends.
I'm sick. I'm just going to give a warning before I introduce myself. I'm stuffy, swollen, and terribly sick, but it's not contagious on camera, so we're good.
So just look at that dedication right there. She's highly dedicated, and this is why she was my real estate agent. So we met in a networking event, and it was called Network Under 40. And the networking event, like Network Under 40, typically has so many people. I think it's always over 100 or so guests in attendance. And the first thing I did when I got there is I was thirsty, so I needed some water. So I made my
literal sense of thirsty. Can we just kind of like?
I was thirsty, right? So I made my way to the bar, but the bar, when you go somewhere, the bar, it was people everywhere, so there was no way to maneuver to get the bartender's attention. So when I got there, like I'm trying to figure out, I probably had some kind of distinguished look on my face because I'm trying to figure out, where to go, a little frustrated. Then I look at this girl to my left and she's like, "Why you look so mean?" I was like, "Me? Like, I'm trying to get some water." And then she was just like, "All right, well, do you want me to get some water?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, sure." So her getting me water, that was basically the start of a great friendship. And reason part on top of that, like she never tried to sell me anything, but the reason I decided to go with her as a real estate agent is just I saw her work ethic. I saw how she treated her clients. Like her clients is not just pieces, like they're not just a dollar sign. Like these are actually genuine relationships that she tried to build. So that's why I decided to go with her. So Carol, I want you to introduce who you are, what company, what makes you awesome.
I'll give you my version of how we met.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm Carol Lerose. I'm the owner of Lerose Real Estate Group. And when I met Danny, the whole thing is, so I'm going to the bar, and she just looks upset. And I'm a very bubbly person, and I love people being happy. And I'm just wondering how your networking events looking upset. So I gave her water. I was a bartender for like 5 years. Like I know how to get like service quickly. And what's funny is that like I think people will see this as we interact, how our personalities are so completely opposite. Yet we have like the same mindset for a lot of things. So we get along so well. And I appreciate that. It really is true. We never try to sell anything to each other. And the way that we do business is, can we build relationships, and will that person trust us enough to let us help them? And that's kind of where we based everything out of. So I've been selling real estate for over 5 years now. And I mainly do referral work, which means someone who had a great time with me decides that they want me to help their friend or families because they want the same service. And then, of course, we do a lot of marketing and everything. But it makes for a very happy life for me when people who come to buy houses is because they already know that I'm going to serve them, and then it makes that transaction go a little smoother.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us like what made you get into real estate, because I think initially you told me that you started on the real estate investing side or something like that, and then you ended up transitioning to be an agent. Like, how did that process work? What inspired that?
There is a lot of little moving pieces that and eventually got me here. And I could go deep into all of them or none of them, but generally I was an account manager for a corporation, taking care of like the Atlanta territory. And I needed more. I wanted more. I wasn't fulfilled. It didn't fill me up with joy at the end of the day. So it was a great job. It was a great position. And so at the time, there was investments that I was doing with who I was with at the time. So flips and rentals. And I was like, oh, I'll get my real estate license just so I could save money. Because I thought the real estate agents that we were using were stealing our money. And then I got my license and I realized they were stealing my money because I was naive and I was new and I didn't know how to hire a good realtor. So when I started doing the first transactions, just something on the side, I fell in love with helping people and how it made me feel and how grateful they were. And I just found that I had a knack to teach people to do this process and come on the other side of the transaction, not just with a house, but also with a lot of knowledge to protect themselves. So that's the short version of how the company started. I started by myself, and then I had the idea, let's make it a business. And then now I'm coaching and training new agents to do the same thing I do, hopefully trying to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that I had to go through. So it just kind of evolved with time. Just searching for what was something that gave me energy and gave other people energy. And eventually this is what turned out to be, which I'm very happy with.
Awesome. So you mentioned that initially you felt like people were stealing money or other agents were stealing money. So explain that process.
So there's a lot of great realtors out there. I'm just going to put that. And I really think that we're worth every penny. But just like in every profession, just like there's teachers who are good, there's cops are not good or politicians are not good. In any field, there's people who are not wholeheartedly there. And so unfortunately, the same way it's in real estate. We, like when realtors get their license, we basically get taught how to not get sued. It's very much legal. They don't teach you how do you communicate with a client, how do you calm them down, how do you negotiate the transaction. I mean, what we do is negotiations, and they don't teach us that in school or real estate school. So unfortunately, a lot of agents will take their license, and just because they know a lot of people, they will continue to make mistakes through transactions, and that's eventually how they learn, or they never learn because there's no regulation as to like how well do you explain something to someone or how well do you negotiate. So what I found out was the realtors that I was using at the time, because I wasn't doing my due diligence to explore what I needed from a realtor and what they really should be giving. They weren't running my numbers tight enough for when it was investment wise. They weren't marketing enough to get the house sold faster. And so I strive for excellency and to grow every day. And I do the same for the agents that start up so that they grasp this knowledge faster, because when they come out of school, they don't know how to negotiate, how to handle contracts, how to keep sellers and buyers in a good state of mind, because it is a very stressful transaction. So not only do you need to know and love negotiations, you need to also know and love people, because that's what we do today. So that's what I meant. There's a lot of great realtors out there. Unfortunately, I was picking the wrong ones because I didn't know what I was looking for, and I didn't do the research to find how do I hire a good realtor.
Okay. Now you're saying that people need to hire the best realtor for them. So I know why I chose you, but how does someone find a great real estate agent for them? Like, how do you find the perfect real estate agent?
I would say number one is referrals. So if you have a friend, a family member who used a realtor and they had an amazing experience and they felt protected the whole time, that's probably where we should start. But we work out a commission, and there's no way around it as of right now. I've looked into a lot of different avenues, but so what I recommend is start with that, but I always recommend interview at least 2 to 3 realtors, because especially if you're looking to buy a home, let's say it's your first home, or you're looking to invest for the first time, you don't know what you don't know. the only way to find that out is to interview different realtors. So you sit down, you tell them your goals, and you wait and see what can they offer, how can they help you, and also find if what you're looking, like the information, if you understand it with that person. There's different personalities, and so like I strive to understand where my client is and how do they want to be communicated. Is it phone? Is it text? Is it email? But I understand that not everyone is passionate about that. So there could be a fantastic realtor who is very great on the phone, but not necessarily keep you updated on emails. And so that's something you need to know beforehand. I will say that the first step is start with referrals, but interview at least 2 realtors so that you know the differences out there and who's a good match to you. Understand that you have the right to shop for a realtor, just like you have the right to shop for a house.
Awesome. And I like the fact that you said that. And I think that's why I chose you, is because with me networking for years, I probably sat down with coffee, probably anywhere between 25 to 50 real estate agents. And I met some really great real estate agents out there. I've been in networking groups with really great real estate agents. Hopefully I get to interview, a couple of those in the future just to hear their experiences as well. But then I also ran into a bunch, where their commitment just seemed like it wasn't there. They didn't care about the client as much, and generally they didn't care about, the relationship. And then I think even where you came of value is the fact that with us both being entrepreneurs is you poured into me, not necessarily on like the client side, but poured into me as far as like, hey, let's partner, let's be friends. Like, how can I help you? And I think that's the thing that most people they don't grasp is the how can I help you aspect, because what is it? Ivan Meisner? I may be getting his name wrong, but anyways, he's professional at he teaches a lot of networking, and one of the things that you learn in networking is that the relationship comes first. Is how do you help people, and I saw how you help, like just how you helped me naturally, just how you were really as like provide service for your clients, and that's why I was like, all right, this girl, she's definitely gonna be my agent when it's that time to go. But speaking of that time to go, so I knew it was time for me to buy a house, and you helped me throughout that process. But I think the mechanics, the financial mechanics, is the number one part. I think that did not attract me to a bunch of real estate agents, is because a lot of people are like, well, if you're paying this much for an apartment, you should buy a house. And then I always told them from a financial point of view, is like, it's not that easy. And it's because when you buy a house, yes, the lender may say you qualify for buying a house, of course, because, your credit may be this way, blah, blah, you may have this much saved, whatever. But does that mean that you're financially ready? And that's the part that most real estate agents miss, which is why some people get into a house. They can get a foreclosure here soon. They get put out. They lose a loan, like whatever the worst case scenarios could be, because even though the lender said that they were ready to buy a house, they were really not financially ready. So me going in, I already specialize in financials because I'm a licensed registered representative. But from your point of view, can you educate people on when should you know that you're financially ready to buy a house based on your experiences?
Yeah. So one of the things that Lerose Real Estate does a little differently, not just me, but my team as well, is that we do our buyer consultation is actually a 2-step. The first step is very much a bit of a financial overview, see if you're in a good spot and what you qualify for, and what the expenses of this transaction will be money-wise and time-wise. And once we jump that hurdle, then we go into what kind of house do you want in what area. So the way it works, like if a lender looks at your finances, they're going to look at your income and your debt. And I'm obviously just doing a very much generalization. It goes a little deeper than this. But initially, they look at your income and your debt and what's on paper, right? So your credit card debt or your car debt or a house loan, things like that. Mm-hmm. They don't look at what's your lifestyle. They don't look at what you spend on Chick-fil-A or going out at night, or did you send money to your mom every month, things like that. And what I'm realized throughout the years is, as much as people get really emotional about, I want to buy a house, and they say, I'm going to change my lifestyle so I have those extra $100 a month, that doesn't last. And so what ends up being is you end up being house poor, because the lender is going to say, you qualify for this much a month. And there's, they don't say everything that you make goes into a house, but the averages for them are a lot more loose than what I believe should be. And the reason is I see so many people end up in short sales or foreclosures and end up hurt because they were house poor, which means after they get their income and they pay for their house and they pay their debt, they have so much little left for what their lifestyle really is or what they wanted to do, whether that's traveling, helping out their family, helping out their kids, helping out their kids through college. None of that is looked at. And it's very easy when you get super emotional about a house to forget about that. So we sit down and go through those finances before we walk into it. Now, I just do a very general case, but then I recommend that people like Danny or a real financial advisor that's going to go deeper into things, especially if they're in the red, which means they're having more debt than what they're making every month. So a lot of the things that we see in real estate, of course, we show on Instagram and we show on Facebook, people bought their house and they're happy. Now they moved up. Now they have their kids. That's all exciting. But the truth is that we see a lot of people get hurt because they made bad financial decisions when purchasing a home, especially not just the debt and income wise to how much can you actually afford, but also what kind of house they're buying. Is it a house that has the potential to be an investment? Is it something that is going to grow in value? Are you in an area that studies are showing that would actually decline? Are you buying the best house in the neighborhood, which, when you go to sell it, you might not get it for, you might not be able to sell for how much you pay for it. So there's a lot to it. And I think, Danny, if all of my clients had the knowledge that you had on financials, my life would be a lot easier. But I'm glad that you're here to help them. So
definitely. So speaking of, I know we mentioned this earlier. Now we're talking about the financial aspect. And one of the things I also see is that some people that may not necessarily be financially ready. Now, we're not talking about veterans. Thankfully, you do have the VA loan, but this may actually apply to some veterans. But then some people go into, when it comes to the loan process, they try to find 0% loans. Now, I know my opinion on that, but I want to hear your opinion on 0% loans.
Yeah, so I think the zero down programs are great, but not for everyone. So there's a lot of gray areas on this. My personal opinion is that if you are able to save up for at least a 3% or 3.5% down loan, or have the ability to have a different type of loan that's not at 0%, you should. Because nothing really comes free. So a lot of these programs come with what we call golden handcuffs. So it's an understanding that the state or the federal government is going to give you this amount of money for the down payment, but now you have to stay in this house for 3, 5, 10 years, depending on the program you qualify for. And if life happens, which it does, right? So let's say you purchase with a 0% down program, and 2 years in, your job relocates you somewhere else, and that's the best opportunity. So now you got to either rent your house or sell it. You owe that money back because you didn't stay a allotted time that they said. And now you thought you had equity and you don't, because you've been paying majority of interest for the last 2 years. And when you go to sell a house, it costs money because now you pay on the commission. So unfortunately, that's where people end up in, well, now do I follow my job, or do I lose this money? Do I go in short sale? And that's unfortunate. So the golden handcuffs they work, I would say, for people who really don't have another choice. And the truth is that when we sit down and look at their finances, and you have someone like Danny helping out, more than likely there is a way for you to come up with that money or make a plan to fix your finances in a way that you can do that down payment to give you a little bit of security on the other side of the transaction, which means when you go to sell. So with that said, my opinion is that if you're interested in a zero down program, you need to talk to a realtor and a lender, and I will recommend at the same time that are both versed on these programs. And so we'll look at your specific situation and give you your options, give you the pros and the cons, and you can come up with that decision. Because most times people buy into a 0% down program, and unfortunately they weren't advised on all of the tie downs that it involves, and then they end up being hurt later. So that's kind of the short version of that.
Oh, perfect. Now, just to kind of add to that, just financially, I think like when it comes to just your finances, no matter what, it's always recommended you should have at least 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund, right? That's not even including what you should have for retirement, what's in your 401k, or any of that. Right when you go into your real estate process, I believe that you should have 3 to 6 months. I would even stretch it out to a year, just considering the market that we're in. But you should have some kind of emergency fund to where if the worst case scenario situations happen, that you can at least have enough recovery time to get to where you want to go. And also when it comes to buying a house, I think it's also recommended you have an idea of what additional expenses that you're going to have once you go into that house on top of the 3 to 6 months, right? Now, my experience, like when it comes to the 0%, thankfully I am a veteran and it made sense for me, obviously, to go that route. But I'm going to look at it as how much are you putting down? Like if people are putting down $20,000 on their home, let's say, for instance, if that's their deposit, over time, what rate of return would you get if you were to invest it? So those are some of the decisions, and I'm not going to go too much into detail on that, but that's some of the decisions you have to make on how to outweigh the pros and the cons. And then here's another question is, and I'm going to give my opinion on it, is why do you need a real estate agent? And then I'll let you go, and then I'm going to go with my experience with you.
Mm-hmm. So,
and I'm sorry to put you off, but like on the buy side and the sell side.
Oh, goodness. Let's do buy side first.
Okay.
I think, I mean, there's general reasons that apply for both of them. 100% for negotiations. Like that's where we make our money. If your real estate agent doesn't know at least 2 or 3 tactics on negotiations, now you're just splitting the difference. Now you're kind of just going in the middle side, and you might never win. So when you're talking about a home, it's a charged word because that's where we're going to spend most of the time, and we're going to make memories where we might have family, friends, pets. And whether you're selling or buying, even sellers, I mean, they have an emotional charge to that house. When it comes to investment, it's a little bit different, but mainly we work with, buyers and sellers that just want to live in the house. It's an emotionally charged word. And so we are trained, if we've done mentoring and coaching outside the real estate school, to handle that situation. So you get the most amount of money and you get the least amount of stress when you use a realtor that can negotiate on your behalf. And that is our knowledge, and that is, what we do for a living. When I'm representing a seller, for example, and a buyer comes and they don't have a realtor and they say, I just want to do it with you, I always tell them, you can, but I'm literally your enemy. Like I'm negotiating against you, and you have no knowledge, and you will not know when I'm using tactics, because my responsibility is to the seller who signed a contract with me. I have fiduciary duties to that person, and my job is to make that person win. Now, I never do it at the expense of hurting someone, but where's the line on hurting? Because I'm trying to get the most money for my seller, and now you have someone who is not experienced in negotiations, right? They don't know what's right or wrong. So 100% you should use a realtor to do the negotiations for you. The other one is all the transactions and legalities that come with it. People don't know. We're in Georgia right now. Georgia is still like the number 5 state in mortgage fraud. There's so cases we see through mortgage fraud, through wire transfers fraud. And sometimes, especially when there's a lot of for sale by owners, they might end up not disclosing something that they should have disclosed. Something may be misunderstood as discrimination. And now you end up with a lot more legal issues. It is not spoken much online about how people end up in legal issues through trying to do for sale by owners or buying on their own, just because it's not a hot topic, but it happens more often than not. If people could do what I do every day, I think this profession would have been dead. So ultimately hiring a professional is going to save you time and is really going to save you money. A lot of people think that, especially when selling the home, they don't want to pay the commission, so they should try to do it themselves. But the statistics show that sellers trying to sell without a real estate agent end up making less money than they would have if they would have sold top price paying a commission. So definitely negotiations and the saving of time and money, because if you hire a good realtor that's versed in what we should be doing every day, it's going to be worth every penny.
That's awesome. And I'm glad that you said that, because I think that's the part that most people miss out on, is the negotiation part. Like most real estate agents, I think they get into real estate because they think it's going to be easy. They think it's going to be easy. And what most do not invest in is the sales part, because they like, oh, I know all these people, they're going to buy from me. And the thing is, when you actually get into the profession, believe it or not, a lot of people are not going to trust you, and it's going to usually start with your closest people, because they know you as whatever you've been doing prior to becoming a real estate agent or whatever your profession is. But the sales part, I feel like most agents do not take the time, and you can call it sales, you can call it negotiation, but they do not invest time in learning how to master that, because sales is an ongoing role, is the level of communication. And when you're working with an agent that understands that, they can put you at a huge advantage. And the reason I like working with you is because when we did run into different houses, you was like, okay, I think this is worth this. I don't believe that you should go for it. But if you do want to go, we can try X, Y, Z. So you educated me on the different tactics, and me understanding sales, I knew which route that I wanted to go. And with this house that I got, just one of the things that I thought, when I noticed, I walked in the house, I was like, oh, this guy's a veteran. So you leveraged that veteran tactic to get me the house that I wanted, so that we didn't get into a bidding war because somebody else wanted a house as well. But because, it's kind of like, I always say I'm in the best fraternity sorority in the world because I'm a veteran, and, it's always veteran love. So shout out to the seller, But so I think that's the main part that most people don't grasp, is getting the right real estate agent that can sell. But just a couple of more things, and then we're gonna wrap it up. I know that you had different experiences with lenders. So how would you educate a person to find the right lender so that they don't run into finding their dream house and then missing out on it because the lender couldn't do their job?
Wow, I'm so glad you asked for this, honestly. So the lender works with the buyer just as much as the real estate agent does. Here's the tricky part, especially big banks, big corporations. I mean, they already have all their fine print. And if they end up accidentally hurting you, because I don't think anyone is out there to hurt other people. And I want to make very clear, the realtors who are not investing into negotiations and things like that, they're usually not bad people. They just haven't been in an environment that encourages them to do so, or explains to them why. We're hoping that as we keep growing and we keep having more influence, we're going to change that. But regardless, when it comes to a lender, I'm biased. I would think selecting a real estate agent is first, because there's no financial tie down to that in the moment. So you can interview, find a great realtor. And one of the assets that they should be able to give you is that they know many lenders who are trustworthy, who are good at what they do. So I always like to give options as to lenders, but I like to get my clients to interview with a lender that does a soft pull, which means their credit is not going to be hurt to look at their financials, to look at their debt, look at their income, and give them a good estimate. Because a lot of times when we look at this estimate, we find out you need to wait 6 months, you need to wait 2 years, you need to wait 3 weeks. And my job is to find what makes sense for you, is not to sell you the house. So if we're in a consultation and I realize, based on your goal and what you told me, it takes another 6 months or it takes 5 years, I'm 100% happy with that. And you need to be able to work with a lender that does that. And the only way you find that is through a real estate agent, especially like big banks. Like if you walk into Chase Bank, you walk into Wells Fargo, nothing against them, but it's a revolving door. So if you walk in and the transaction didn't work out and now you're upset forever at Wells Fargo, the worst you can do is put a bad review. You're not going to be able to sue them. You're not going to be able to do anything. Versus if you have a realtor who's serving you and they have worked many times with this lender, and in the transaction something happens, the lender is going to go above and beyond to make the transaction work and help you out, because their livelihood is tied to that real estate agent. If they hurt you as a client, that real estate agent is not going to give them any more referrals. So I believe in that network advantage of a realtor who's worked enough transactions to know the lender, and the lender knowing that part of their livelihood, is treating these clients of the real estate agent properly. So I'm biased. I'd say find a real estate agent first, and through their interview, a couple of lenders as well. And you're going to be working with them for at least 30 days of that transaction. So you want to make sure that, again, that not only do they seem knowledgeable and they care for you, but also that you understand what they're explaining to you, and that you understand that they're going to communicate in a way that you want, because it is a lot. After you find the house of your dreams, it's not like HGTV. It's like, oh, yay, we found the house and now we closed. There's another 25 to 30 days of submitting paperwork, understanding what happened, or there's many things that happen. And so you want the lender and the realtor to be on your side, and that you all understand each other, and that you know that they're there for you. Because if you can't trust the people that are on your side of the transaction, this is going to be very, very difficult for you.
Awesome. I think the kids is starting to nap now. But before we wrap this up, lastly, I think it should be known, because I want to make sure everyone heard it. You keep using the word interview. So when you run into a real estate agent, definitely interview. You are now in the boss seat, to where you get to choose whoever you want. Just because you talk to a real estate agent, they sound great, interview them, ask questions, research the questions to ask, as well as she's also said she's going to provide multiple lenders. Interview them. Believe it or not, I've ran into so many people, and I'm going to interview my mortgage lender. But me personally, I went through 3 trusted sources as far as mortgage lenders for me to find the best rate. But not only the best rate, I knew that the people that I talked to could get the job done, but I ran into the person with the best rate so that I spend less overtime. But then ultimately, I know that the job got done, and it did get done. And ultimately, it came from a great referral from Carol, because she knew that the girl can get her job done. And also the other ones I knew, like I said, I knew they can get the job done as well. But you are in the boss seat, and financially, you have to make those decisions to run into the people that's going to make your situation financially ultimately better. Yep. So in concluding, my last question is, what advice, because I think I heard a couple years ago that there was like over 100,000 real estate agents in Atlanta, or not in Atlanta, in Georgia. And the percentage of those is actually working versus not working is obviously a significant difference. Because a lot of people that generally they want to make part-time income, right? And they think real estate is so easy. It's funny, the amount of opportunities out here, they think it's easy, right? So they get into it, they spend all this money, then they realize that they actually have to work and invest not only time and energy, but you have to learn what you're doing. You have to invest in clients. You have to invest in relationships. So there's a certain part that most people don't know about. So what advice would you give to the person that wants to get into real estate because they feel like that's the only solution to them making a part-time income or a career change because they hate corporate America?
Mm-hmm. I would start with, if you don't love people, and I mean all types of people, don't even consider it. Just don't, because this is what we do daily. It's liking and loving the different types of personalities, and finding a way to communicate with them regardless of them being different from you is part of what I do daily. So if you don't have a passion for that, immediately discard real estate. Maybe go into the real estate investment side. It's just investing as a whole different conversation, but it's a lot more straight to the numbers versus helping people out or walking people through things. But as a real estate agent, you're definitely going to work with people. So that's one. And then two, you have to know yourself and have self-awareness. And I would say, before you even start taking your real estate license, talk to, this is my point. I always say interview, and I wouldn't believe in this if I didn't tell my own clients to talk to other realtors as well. But if you're considering real estate, talk to a couple of realtors who are doing it, who are top producers, and ask them to shadow them. See what it really is behind the scenes, because it really isn't like HGTV. And a lot of that we do for our clients is never seen. It's definitely not easy. And if you don't like people, it's way harder. And there's a lot of knowledge and growth. You have to do a lot of self-motivating things. No one tells you to wake up in the morning. No, you want to go to bed. No one tells you when you have to do things. So it's very much a challenging role. It's easy to get the real estate license, but it's not easy to be successful. If it was that easy, we would have so many more realtors who are, making it so well. Beware of Instagram and Facebook, where it's very flashy to buy followers, because they could be selling 5 houses in a year and have 25,000 followers on Instagram, right? So if you're considering it, I would say shadow a couple of realtors out there and see who they really are and what it really entails. And don't even consider it if you don't love people. If you don't love people, let me know. I'll connect you with investors. We can talk about the investor side.
Okay, awesome. So Carol, how do everyone follow you? How do we find you?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So on Instagram, it's Lerose Real Estate Group, and Lerose is spelled Lerose, like the flower. And you can find me on Facebook by Carol Lerose as well. My middle name is going to be there is Yvette, Ivette. And honestly, even if it's a simple question, regardless if you're in a different state, I'm walking around with all this real estate knowledge and I'm not using it all the time. So feel free to ask me questions. If you're asking me about the future, the past, your cousin has this question, they don't dare to reach out. I will not charge you for a consultation, and I will not make call you every day like, hey, you ready to buy a house? So feel free to ask me questions, because that's the only way that you're going to educate yourself to what works for you. And I really love when people reach out and are preparing themselves for a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later. That's ultimately going to grant them success. And so I love being reached out for questions. So please do Facebook, Instagram. My phone number is public everywhere, is 678-365-6392. That's our team number, but you'll definitely going to get a person to talk to you. So we're very excited about that.
Perfect. Well, in order to reach me, you guys know it's Coach Danny Renee, DANIRENEE. You can reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook. But this here is the Millennial Network, and I want to say goodbye. Have a good one.